generally how I will do it, not because I think I'm prettier than any of you guys by any means, but just because that way it'll stay on the paintings while I'm teaching and presenting. I'm going to test really quick my share screen. Let's see. All right. Can you guys see our Facebook group?
Yes.
Yes.
Perfect, perfect. All right, so we've got 14 of us on there. There should be, I believe, just under 20 of us on there. I think there's 20 students total. So when you get a chance or your daughter comes over to help, please sign up. Let's just go ahead and do a quick walkthrough of why I like the Facebook groups so very much. In classes past, I was sending out everything through email, which was going into some people's trash, and people were missing and everything else. I will try to send out an email previous to each class and post every class, kind of with, with the link to the video after class, and then the link to the Zoom. The Zoom link that you're using right now is the same link that you will be using for all 8 weeks. Okay, so that makes it really easy. There won't be a new one every week. So just sign into this exact same way you did this morning at 8:45 to 9 o'clock on Wednesdays, and we are in business, or 11 o'clock if you are in Texas. And here we go. So up here, I've got what we will call like the pinned area, which has the link to the Zoom. I've also, just for today's class, I put something I wanted to read to you guys to talk a little bit about tonalism, because tonalism is kind of an abstract concept and kind of encompasses a lot of things. And I liked this description. So we're going to come back to that in just a little bit. Anyways, so those are the pinned ones. Those are kind of the important things that I want you to put. I will also be putting all the videos in this, so they're calling it featured. And then it's just basically in order, just like normal Facebook and a lot of the social media things, is just in order of what was posted last. So I've put on here a couple lists. I put those into the comments, so you're gonna have to see them. So if you go here, it's like a list of old masters. If you would like to look anybody up and learn more about some of my favorite tonalists throughout history, and I'll be adding to that, and please feel free to add to that as well. And then I put a couple links for them, and then I also added some modern masters, and I'll be adding to that as well. What's really neat about these modern masters is I know all of them. Well, one just passed away, unfortunately, Russell Chatham. But I've met or know all of these guys. I even own paintings from a number of these people. So it's really neat that, to watch this tradition being passed on. So again, add to that if you feel like you'd like to. So it's just a list of artists that we can look up. So that's under here, under this picture, and that's that is a George Innes painting right there. I'm always curious if this is a log or a figure here, so you can go look at that later and decide. There's our little cover picture. Here's what's kind of important. You can see there's 98 images. I went ahead and just loaded a whole bunch of photos that I've taken over the years that kind of have a tonalist bent to them. You are free to use these during class. And if you get them into shows and whatever else, I know that some of my students from last class actually ended up showing and selling and while using some of my references. All that I ask is that you, on the back of the painting, write, reference photo by Michael Orwick. That's just kind of and that's not even because I care. That's just good practice in the art business. But if you are going to use any photos that you find, make sure that you have permission from the photographer. If you're wondering how do I get these kind of post-apocalyptic colors and everything else in my photos, a lot of these are either edited in Photoshop and, you know, where I do away with a lot of the color and then punch up some of the warms, or I actually shoot them through my sunglasses, which is kind of a little trick I learned a number of years ago. Anyways, there's almost 100 of these references. Some of them are pretty lousy. Like this one's really blurry. But I sure like I see so much interesting design in here with standing in the shadows of the trees and these front lit bushes here. Lots of these are just scenes right around my house. This is literally 2 blocks away. We call it the Frog Pond. It's right. I'm standing right beside a almost highway or a freeway. What is it called? Farmington Road. This is Savi Island. These lines were added for a student in the past. Anyways, lots and lots and lots of semi-tonalist. This is our view from our cabin. I paint that all the time. Anyways, lots of references. So if you, during the class, are having a hard time deciding and just want to get to painting, feel free. Jump in there, grab some of those. If you'd like to see me paint any of them, like you're like, man, this one's really fun, I'd really like to see it. Just let me know and maybe we can make that part of the class. So you're going to find all of these pictures under media. So you want to stay kind of in the discussion area generally. You can ignore pretty much all of this other stuff except for media. Media is where I'm posting or where all the pictures that are posted will go. Also, when you guys start sharing your artwork, your beautiful paintings that you're doing during the class, or any paintings that you have questions about, they will also show up in the media section. In the media section, I have albums. You don't have to worry about this too much if you don't want to, but that's where you will find references to use during class. Luminism, which is something that I find very related to tonalism, and we'll talk about further in the class. Living tonalists and past tonalists. So again, we can add to these as the class continues, but it's just a great way to go and learn a little bit about it. I just put these in, so unfortunately I don't even have the artists' names in here yet. I'll put those into the comments when I get a chance, which will probably be next week because I leave tomorrow for a 5-day show out at the coast.
Michael, are you going to put the videos in the video section under media?
Hey, I don't know. Whoops, don't want that. That's a good question. I wonder how that would work. So you said under the media section?
Yeah, see, it says photos, videos, albums.
I wonder if it'll let me post a 3-hour video. That is so funny that here we are a year after starting these Zoom classes, and yeah, good catch. I don't know. I'll try. I'll see what happens. Otherwise, it'll be the same. I'll just have the link to the YouTube.
Yeah, because sometimes you have to scroll through a lot to find a past video.
In the YouTube?
Yes. You know, if you're just on the discussion page, you have to scroll through a lot sometimes to find a video that you did 2 weeks ago. Okay,
so yeah, on that, see how it has featured? What I will do is put them up in the featured. All the videos will be under one single thing. So it'll say the first video will look just like this. It'll say the first video, and it'll have a picture of the video. And then when you click it, pretend this is a video. It will, all the other videos will be in the comments under that first video.
Oh, okay.
So that way, yeah, I'm sorry I didn't make that clear because I did that in the last couple of classes to make it a lot easier because, yeah, that was definitely a big issue. So look for that, and I will explain that again once we get a couple videos up, but they should be tabbed right to the top under the featured section. And this is a new improvement, like how they've kind of organized it. I've just like everything, every couple of months they change stuff, but I actually like the changes they did this time. Any questions so far? Covering a lot of ground.
I just have, I've tried twice to join this group, and it says there's some technical difficulty, try again. So I haven't been able to get on. Maybe if you send me an invite, or no.
Do it. Let's send you an invite real quick.
I had trouble with that too, Michael, in the last class. And finally, when you re-invited me, I could access.
Okay, and I have noticed that if we're actually friends, I hate to force us to become friends just so you can join our group, but if we're friends, it's a lot easier for me to actually add you. So if we're having a really hard time and it's not working, yeah, see, it says invite friends, but I don't know how to invite. Are we friends on Facebook? Do you know?
No, because I really don't like Facebook, so I'm unfriendly to Facebook.
Me too.
Yeah, and I totally get it. I really try to kind of stay away, especially the more you learn about kind of things that they're doing.
All right, well, maybe it's something we could figure out afterwards. I just wanted to let you know that.
Yeah, I tried to make it really easy. Like the questions, membership question is simply a yes, no. And I think even if you accidentally put no, it would still let you in.
Well, I am a member, but I don't even know my password or anything like that because I don't like it. But we could work it out. We'll work it out.
Michael, I have a question. So for when you are just talking and not demoing, I wonder if you could unpin yourself so that we could see the other people, because I can't tell who's talking when people are chiming in.
Yeah,
and it would be nice to get to know other students.
100% good idea. Just remind me when I go to the easel to do it. Or
yes, we will.
But yeah, no, I want to get to know everybody, and looks like a good group. So
Michael?
yeah, no, I think that's great. Go ahead, please.
There we go.
I was going to say up next to invite, it says join. Could you make sure that the two people that are not Facebook advocates are on that list maybe?
Under the joined?
Yeah, I was just one. Oh,
No.
managed. No, I didn't. I thought it would give a list of the people.
No.
Yeah.
No, it didn't work. Okay.
Yeah, for the first couple of you, I had to let you in, and then I figured out that I could do the automatic member approval. And everybody's just coming right in. Carrie just joined, it looks like, this morning. Perfect. And Mindy as well, and Laura. So yeah, people are joining. Let's just deal with it after class if we're having issues. I will stay on a little bit longer if I can, and we will walk and talk our way through. It's great to see Gail in our group.
Good morning.
Good morning. Yeah, because I've done this, a couple of times. I think this is the third or fourth Facebook group that we've started. Yeah, there's been some confusion there, so we're figuring it out together. And so let's all just be patient with each other and help each other. And I think it's going to be great. Oops, I just took you to my personal group here. No, sorry about that. Anyways, let's just go. Anyways, on there, please go explore. I've put links to a couple different resources. Is everybody seeing the same group page again?
Yep.
No? Are you seeing me?
Yes. Yes.
Yes, we're seeing the Facebook.
You're seeing the Facebook. Okay. So anyways, there's quite a bit of stuff on there. I don't want to waste everybody's time. Today's class, I'm going to kind of use this artist named Dennis Sheehan. He is a contemporary tonalist painter. I don't know if he's, how much credit we give him for kind of reinvigorating some of the interest in tonalism. Tonalism is one of those things that kind of comes and goes as far as any sort of fad in art does. I've always loved it. I've always loved the simplicity and the beauty and the emotional resonance and how it connects to nature, and how, for me, tonalism is the idea of not painting exactly what you see, but painting how you feel, or as I like to joke, more importantly, how you want the scene to make you feel. I love to start with a reference and then drastically change its colors, its design, its everything to match the theme, mood, feeling, whatever it is that you want from your scene. So this class is a little bit more on the poetic side. So if you came to this class with, I want to be a journalistic painter, just the facts, ma'am, I just want to paint what I see and try to replicate, as exacting as possible, this may not be the class for you. If you are more on the poetic side of painting, which is what I consider myself, a poet, just kidding, but on the poetic side, then this may be for you, or definitely is for you. This is more of finding the emotion, finding the feelings, and chasing that, and creating our own scenes. We're going to be doing a lot of inventive painting, which can be scary for some people. I totally get it. But I want us all to have fun, to relax, and I fully, at the risk of sounding really bad, I fully embrace mistakes. I fully embrace painting disasters. I hope you do too, because from those we will learn, and we will keep painting and keep painting and keep painting. There's a story, I don't know how true it is, about a college pot throwing class, ceramics class. And have you guys heard this story? So
No.
he took half the class and told them, your grade is based on the best pot that you can make, your one best pot. And he told the other half of the class, your grade is based on who can make the most pots. Okay. And in the end, the students that had thrown the most pots, who had just kept creating and just kept experimenting and playing, made better pots than the students that just freaked out and focused and tried desperately to just make one perfect pot. And I very, very much believe that. Since the last class we've had together, which was only a little over a month and a half ago, maybe, I've painted 32 paintings.
Oh my God.
And 3 or 4 of them were 4 foot by 3 foot. A couple, one I'm almost done with now is 30 inches by 60 inches. So they're not all small. There's some big ones in there too. And there's a lot. And I mean, that's 32 paintings that have gone out to galleries. So think of all the ones that are failed or half done laying around the studio. And it's an unfair comparison. Please don't compare yourself to me. That's what I do all day, every day. That's my job. I do it, 8 hours and recently 12 hours a day, because I've got 2 shows back to back, literally within 2 weeks of each other. But it's just keep painting, just keep playing, just keep experimenting. You'll hear me bring that up almost every class, but I really believe it to be true. And that's where we'll learn. We're going to learn so much by, as Bob Ross would say, our happy accidents. And we're also going to learn so much from our unhappy accidents, as Bob Ross didn't say. But if you can sit back and observe and take note of your paintings, you will learn from the good and the bad. Also, in a group situation like this, we get to learn from each other. So we get to learn from each other's happy accidents and unfortunate accidents. And sometimes our unfortunate accidents lead us to new discoveries. What I want us to learn to do is to be present, to paint with maybe not always deliberation, because it kind of can take away some of the fun, but I want us to paint with a consciousness where each stroke is thoughtful. Each stroke, you're aware of what's happening. We're not just, you'll see me do some scrubbing and stuff, but it can be exhausting paying attention to your painting all the way through, but you'll learn so much faster. So we'll be talking about all of that. But anyways, the big point of that little side was paint, have fun, experiment, try new things. This is going to be a lot of new stuff for a lot of you. And it's scary, and it's going to be scary no matter what. And when our paintings aren't doing what we want them to do, that's always sad and a little bit rough. and I accept that, but get over it and keep painting, get back on that proverbial horse. All right, so again, Facebook is showing here. We've got Dennis Sheehan on the screen. Go ahead.
May I ask a question? So I noticed none of the photos have any attribution. Do you mind if we just type in the artist names as you're talking into the Facebook page so that they will be, next time we look, we will get to know who these are? And
sure, and I mean to go back. I was just dumping tons of images.
no, you could make it a student project, you know. Our job is to put the attributions in.
Oh, look, I'm friends with him on Facebook. So now that I posted it, it's going to link to him.
Oh, cool.
I have a question, Michael.
Yeah.
It appears in looking at most of these tonalists that they're almost, not quite, but almost monochromatic. Is that a characteristic?
That is very much a characteristic, and in fact, kind of where the name comes from, right? They're worried more about the tone than the color.
Okay.
Yeah, let's talk about that for a second, because that's a very, very good point. And what I want to do is kind of get to painting kind of quickly today. And then each week I will introduce new aspects of tonalism. I do not, just like I just said about playing and having fun and not getting too serious about anything, I don't want us to get too hung up on any of the rules of tonalism. I have 6 or 7 books on tonalism and a couple websites that I've, investigated, including, dictionaries and things, and they all describe tonalism differently. Tonalism is just kind of a loose band of artists from the 1880s through the 1920s. That is the heyday of them. They kind of led into Impressionism, which is kind of funny, right? Because what a difference. And I think that's how art goes. Sometimes it just swings so spectacularly. It's an American art movement when you call it tonalism. If you call it Barbizon, that's more of the French style, and it's literally named after the town or region of Barbizon, France. So you'll see it throughout history, and because it predates Impressionism to a degree, it also predates a lot of the super chromatic colors. So it's a lot of the earth-based, mineral-based colors. So you get a lot of these kind of beautiful, warm browns and yellows. But yeah, what they were looking for was kind of almost a spiritual connection in their painting to history.
How are you?
There we go. They definitely looked to simplify. A lot of these painters did go out into nature to paint, but they would finish or recreate their scenes in the studio. So for any of you that think of yourselves as more of a plein air painter, meaning painting outdoors, this style can totally work for you still. I love doing tonalist paintings outdoors. For any of you also that are like, now that I'm looking at this, why did I sign up for this class? I like color and I like, impressionistic brushwork. I promise you that this style and this way of thinking and working that we're going to go through over the next number of weeks also works with a more impressionistic style. I will try to find a link to a video that I did of me doing a tonalist painting and then going over it and making it into a bright, colorful, impressionistic painting. It was a great big one, 36 by 48. It's one of the ones that I shipped out and already sold, and I'm really happy with that painting. I'll post it onto our group after class. But it's a great way of designing and building up your painting. All right, so you'll see, let's just go ahead and comment. So anyways, I could just put Dennis Sheehan for all these next ones. These are all Dennis Sheehan. And he, I'm not sure when I discovered his work, but I actually discovered it in the background of a TV show about the White House. What was the one that was really famous with a whole bunch of serious actors? I think Sheen, or what's his name, Charlie Sheen, or
On
maybe
the West Wing?
The West Wing had some of his paintings in their faux West Wing. And so by looking it up, I was like, man, I just love those paintings. Discovered Dennis Sheehan's work.
Hmm.
And that was probably right out of college almost. That was quite a while ago that
Wow.
on. And just kind of fell in love with his stuff. It was also my friend Don Bishop, who's a local painter here in Portland. Also kind of took me under his wing a little bit and was teaching me. So we're going to look at some of Don Bishop's work in the future weeks. And you'll see the similarities. And then by learning about Dennis Sheehan, you then kind of go down the rabbit hole, right? You learn about who influenced Dennis Sheehan, who is Dennis Sheehan influenced, and all these things. What I really like and what I want you to pay attention to for today, for our assignment for today, is 3 distinct values. A lighter value, generally the sky, maybe the water, if you have water, the reflection. And then the second lightest is generally the ground plane. And then the upright things, the trees, the bushes, the sides of the grass are dark as a general rule. Okay. Of course, every rule as a general guideline, I should say. But as we look through his pictures really quick, observe that. See, he's got the lightest is the sky and the water, the ground, even though it's quite dark, is the second, and then the dark of the uprights. Same thing here, the lightest sky, water, ground, and then the darks of the trees. Isn't that interesting? What a formula, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, very little light in this one, right along the ground plane here. And then the trees, and then where he wants his trees to appear transparent, which is something I do all of the time in my paintings. I love having glowy, transparent areas in my shrubbery and bushes and leaves. That's all we're going to focus on for today's assignments when I get up to the easel. This is the painting I'm going to steal some colors from today. I'm going to use an older paint, not older, I painted it last week. A painting I did last week, and I'm going to use that as my reference. It's a painting I made up, but I like the design of, and you guys are more than welcome. I will post a picture of it to our group after class. You're more than welcome to use my design or whatever design you like. If you'd like to go and borrow a Dennis Sheehan, I just wouldn't sell it, if you want to copy any of his. But again, light, medium, and dark. And even though these reds feel lighter than a lot of his other paintings, if you squint your eyes at it, it's still so much darker than the ground plane or the sky. Gets a little closer where the trees become wispier and their foliage becomes thinner. But we still have the brightest is the sky and the water, then the ground, and then the darks of the upright planes, the trees. What a formula, right? I mean, it works. He loves it. He's famous. He's, and you're gonna see this throughout a lot of the traditional tonalists as well. Another thing, and this is something you can worry about this week or not, is you'll see that it's got harder edges and soft edges in most all tonalist paintings. We'll be focusing on that later in the class. But I just something to notice that if you want to have some hard edges, soft edges, or lost edges and found edges, however you like to call it, then that's something we can also work on. Looks like the same picture. Maybe I made the loop. Anyways, any questions about that? So we're going to be working with a kind of a muted palette this week. Doesn't mean you can't have color or it all has to be one color. But I kind of want you to have a tone, hence the tonalist. Like if we looked at this one, it's kind of the warm golds of the sky and then the greens and reds of this. That's kind of the tone. It's kind of darker, muted with big shapes and design. Not a lot of detail. Most of the detail is hinted at. All right, so that's going to be a big thing that we'll be working on too is implied detail. And I personally thank artists when they trust me enough to imply detail, to let my brain be a part of the painting and fill in this information. They trust me that they don't have to tell me everything, every leaf, every blade of grass, every ripple in the water. And then they can tell me, you know what, this is a pretty scene, beautiful colors, but this is kind of where I want you to look. This is where the tighter edges are. This is the detail. This is the, it's not gonna let me zoom in anymore. So they kind of, a lot of tonalists will reserve detail as well. They will kind of obliterate it where they don't want you to go. They'll make really soft edges in areas that say, you know, there's something going on over here, but this isn't what the painting's about. This is a supporting character, these trees over here on the right. So we'll kind of soften these edges to such a degree that your eye just skims right across, but our eye is attracted to contrast and sharp edges.
And the focal point's right in the middle.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? Yeah. Pretty fun. Yeah, so yeah, there's the Dennis Sheehan. This is a student of Dennis Sheehan who focuses a lot on the sky. What was his name? Justin T. Worrell. If you want to look up any of his work, he's very much about the sky. So he's kind of taking this tonalism and going a little bit towards luminism, but you'll see a lot of the same brushwork, and a lot of his ground planes are almost abstracted, where you can't even tell what's going on in a lot of the areas. And that's kind of fun, kind of cool. I think that he's going to be a very good painter, but it's interesting to watch his growth. And then, yeah, I've got all these other tonalists. So here you can see is an old tonalist painting, but the exact same concept. This is not a Dennis Sheehan. I'm not exactly sure. I'd have to look up who this is. But look, same concept. Lightest, second lightest ground plane, the dark upright planes of the bushes. Any questions about that? You guys ready to go make a painting on this very perfunctory, limited knowledge of tonalism? You guys ready to watch some painting or paint along if you're feeling ready?
Did you tell us how many paintings we have to turn in every week?
It's my weight. So it's whoever paints the most paintings by weight.
Okay.
So I would suggest painting on gold bricks or at least rocks.
And just sending them to you.
Well, yeah, the gold bricks, please send those.
Lead bricks are a lot cheaper.
Yeah. Anyways, please spend some time going and looking and have fun. Let's get back to, oh no, I want to do screen share, stop share. Okay, so we're back to me. How do I do, is it pinned to me? I don't know. I'll show you one of the big tonalist paintings. How do I show it to you? There it is, back over my shoulder of Haystack Rock. Obviously, my next show is at Cannon Beach. So I got a whole bunch of Haystack Rock paintings going in. The one on the over here is very impressionistic if we were able to get close to it. The one in the middle is luminist. And then the one over here, it's all in reverse, so I don't even know how to use my hands. The one above my head anyways is the tonalist one. So it's kind of fun. I love kind of bouncing back and forth between them. Some of them have hard edges, some of them have soft edges, some of them have muted colors, some of them have very bright colors. And so that is a lot of fun. Let's go ahead and—
You're not pinned.
Nope, I got to figure that out. I'm not seeing those dots for some reason right now. So let's take a 5-minute break, go refill our coffee while I set up. This is my big, I don't know where to point, my big easel right behind me. So we will be going there to that and give me a couple seconds to make sure that the camera is working.
And it would help if we all mute our mics.
Yeah, everybody just do a group mute. Go grab your tea, your coffee, pet your cat, and be back in 9:40, 5 minutes. All right, spotlighting. Hopefully that works. So what I've done just now is just take my paints that I had in the freezer. I just have them in a big plastic Tupperware, the acrylic boxes. And I just, every night when I clean up my paints, I just throw them in here and put that in the freezer so that my paints stay, my oil paints stay for a lot longer. And I do drop a little bit of clove oil, a drop of clove oil in there, and that helps them to stay really fresh. They're beautiful, soft, and pliant still. That just goes down beside my palette.
How do you keep them up there?
They're oil, so they're just nice and sticky. Once I put,
I don't know. I got some tubes. I put oils out and they slide right down a vertical.
yeah, give them a little push.
Palette.
The oil will, yeah, they can be little slugs, and just slowly slither down your panel. And I don't I mean, this is for teaching, right? Because my normal palette is, I'm not sure who I'm talking to right now, if you're a past student or a
It's Laura.
Hi, Laura. Okay, so I've got this great big huge palette that I would paint on when I'm not painting for everybody else here. So yeah, this is just, but I am learning to really like it because it's in the same lighting condition as this. This is being hit by light differently. So yeah, they do slide down every once in a while. You have to kind of wipe up the little drips of oil or paint thinner, and you'll see because I'm going to be thinning these down quite a lot. And so they will get, there's going to be some drips. It's going to be some dripping going on. Okay, I'm going to assume that most people are back, that they've pet their cat and got their tea. All right, yeah, I see this color is a little slipperier already. This is the Venetian Red. So I'm grabbing some colors I don't normally grab, and I'll talk about that a little bit. These are kind of the browns in my tool chest here that don't often see the light of day, but are some beautiful, beautiful, beautiful earthy colors. This is a gray that is from literally just me cleaning my palette last night, and it just ended up this nice neutral gray. Sometimes I'll kind of adjust it a little bit to keep it neutral. And that's Payne's gray, which for me almost serves as a blue. So let's go ahead and step back and do a quick refresher for everybody, and especially for the new students. Ignore these colors right now, just for a second. These are my all the time colors, right? It's my white, my Hansa yellow light, or lemon yellow, or cad yellow light, any kind of a greeny light yellow. And then I generally will have like a cadmium medium. This is Indian yellow, which I just love, and I think you're going to really enjoy using for tonalist paintings. It is literally the color of sunshine, and it is super transparent, and it can turn this cool yellow that I have over here, this kind of yellow that wants to go towards green. It will turn it to a very nice warm yellow very quickly. So what I use is what's called a split primary palette, meaning that I've got primaries: blue, red, yellow, and white. And I have one yellow that leans towards green, one yellow that leans towards orange, one red that leans towards orange, and one red that leans towards purple, one blue that leans towards purple, and one blue that leans towards green. I always set them out in the same way, no matter what palette. It's white, my yellows, and it makes, in fact, a color wheel if I put them in a circle. Whereas, this yellow leans towards green and this blue leans towards green. So it makes a nice, very consistent color setup. And I like to keep them exactly the same because I kind of equate it to, imagine if somebody moved the keys around on your keyboard or on your piano. You just want to make things as simple as possible. And by replicating as much of it as we can, it helps me to do that. So I'm not searching for colors. Over here is what I consider my guest colors. And oftentimes I'll have like it could be any color, it could be my guest color. Whatever color I want. A lot of times there's no guest colors, just these 6 colors, and white are that's all I need. I can do everything I want. In fact, these browns are completely unnecessary, as is this Payne's gray, because I can make these colors with these colors no problem.
Michael, it's Jean. Could you just tell me the blue and it looks like the purple on there? The
Sure.
color?
So let's go ahead and just tell you what I have. And the blues stay pretty consistent. I have the purple is the ultramarine blue. Probably everybody owns that color. It's one of the most common. Ultramarine blue can be called French ultramarine. There's no difference. And then this lighter blue, kind of greenier blue, is for me, it's a manganese blue hue. A lot of people will put a cerulean blue there, which is fantastic and great. I just find that the manganese is a little more vibrant and bright when I need it, and I can mute it very easily to make it like a cerulean. So most colors, you can make them duller, very easy, but it's hard to make them brighter and more vibrant. They're most vibrant right out of the tube. So you want colors that, or at least I want colors that exist far out on the color wheel, and then I can mute those colors accordingly by simply, so this is a really common, very, very, very basic color palette. This would be a lemon yellow, a cad red medium, and a French ultramarine. A lot of teachers, when they have you doing your color wheels, that's the thing, but you'll notice very ugly purples, and the greens aren't as vibrant as they could be because the blue already has kind of a red tint to it. And so what I did was just adding a second primary to it, and now I can make very vibrant colors around the color wheel. And then these browns and grays exist inside of this color space. By simply mixing from across the color wheel, you can make very neutral and brown colors. So if you want to challenge yourself and not, and make kind of brownish and earthy colors, but use very, very vibrant colors, that is a great and fun challenge. I just threw some browns on here. I don't know why, really. Just to make, they're kind of shortcut colors. Whenever I have guest colors, they're considered shortcut colors. Let's say I was going to do a scene that had so very much green in it. Maybe I would throw 2 different greens on there. Not that I would ever use them pure, but then I can make, use these other colors to just make lots of different greens. This, for tonalists, is a wonderful palette right here. This is considered the Anders Zorn palette. And this is black. I think it's ivory black, yellow ochre, and cadmium red, I believe. I think so. Anyways, it makes very strange. So the black becomes your blue, the yellow ochre becomes your yellow, and you can't make bright, bright, bright pure colors. So it's a fun challenge. And we're going to go over all this in the next class next winter. It's never too early to start marketing, right? But color class is what I really like to do in the winter, because we could all use some color in the winter. And then this is just a strange little experiment that I've been playing with lately. And it's basing my colors on my printer, the CMYK, and just trying to figure out how can my printer make so many colors when all it has is one yellow, not even a real blue, has a turquoise color, and then the kind of a purpley red. And it's interesting that the colors turn towards blue after you add a little bit of red to it. The colors become blue. Anyways, we'll talk about all that. If you enjoy this class and would like to paint with color in the winter, like I like to, then join me and we'll go over a lot of this then. I am going to do
Michael, could you tell us the colors that are your shortcut colors?
Sure. I have a transparent earth red here, and it also happens to be a fast matte color, which means I like to use that as my sketching color underneath. It dries really fast, makes a nice base to paint with. Anyways, it's not necessary, but especially if you travel with your paints like I do and you want them to be kind of dry faster. Fast Matte by Gamblin, they don't make as many colors as they used to, but it's got an alkyd resin in it that makes it dry a little faster. Venetian Red, my friend Amy Erickson kind of turned me onto that. She's been quoted as saying if she could only have one color, she would have Venetian Red. It's a very, very opaque, the opposite of the transparent earth red. It's very opaque, meaning that it covers very completely. But remember, I told you that I really kind of wanted to look at some of the colors that Dennis Sheehan used in that one painting, where the reddish trees with the kind of interesting greens that he had in the grasses. I kind of thought my Venetian red may be fun there. If you want to have an interesting challenge, do Venetian red, black, and white, or Payne's gray and white as your colors, and you'll have this very interesting, beautiful, glowy, warm colors. Venetian red and white makes this just beautiful, earthy, pinkish brown color that I really like. Add Payne's gray to that. And you can just do a lot of interesting things. Anyways, fun side experiments you could do. And, or, you know, with these paintings that we're going to be doing this week, you have a lot of leeway for experimentation, because we're just looking mostly at the values, the light sky and water, the mid-value ground, and the darks of the uprights, right? So you can make whatever colors you want this week and play and experiment, and they can be, you know, bright and garish, or, you know, earthy and dull, or gray colored, whatever you want. That's the assignment, is just thinking about the 3 values this week and simple design. My next color is burnt umber, which most people have. That's kind of a very typical brown. Burnt umber is another good color for using for your sketching. The minerals in it will actually dry faster than most other colors. And it's a semi-transparent to it can be quite opaque depending on the brand. Mine happens to be a semi-transparent, but I'm also using a student grade, the 1980s by Gamblin. I found some colors in the 1980s I really like I really like the Payne's gray in 1980. And it's just, it makes it more transparent. You'll see that I use quite a bit of transparent paint in my collection, and then Payne's gray. Do you guys know the difference between transparent and opaque paints in oils, acrylics, gouache? They all have these different levels. Is everybody aware of that?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. And you can simply, if it's a reputable brand, turn it over and you can read whether it's opaque, semi-opaque, semi-transparent, or transparent. When I was first picking out my colors, I would generally have one opaque and one transparent, one opaque, one transparent. And then my blues are both semi-transparent. White is generally an opaque color, so you add it to any transparent color and it makes it into a much more opaque color, which can work great or sometimes get in the way a little bit. When you want to lighten, let's say I want a transparent pink, very hard to make, because once I add the white to the red, it becomes semi-opaque. So things to be aware of. If you're unsure and your paint does not say on the back, a very simple test I will do is take a Sharpie pen onto a piece of cardboard or a piece of paper, draw some long lines, and literally just put my paint, like let's imagine that there's a, let's just pretend this is a Sharpie line here, going across here. I would put down my color on one end and really thick, and then just thin it as I go across, and see at what point can I see the Sharpie underneath the paint. If you can see it, even when it's a big thick glob, it's a very transparent color. Cadmium colors are definitely more opaque, and you'll have to really thin it down just by scrubbing, you know, and having thinner paint till you can see it. So that's a good test to see how thick or how transparent or opaque your colors are. Any more questions about color?
I have a suggestion. This is Laura. As you are mixing colors, could you remind us which colors you are mixing from, and then tell us what color you see that you are mixing to? Because what we're seeing is a color balanced view that your camera has created. So we
Mhm.
don't actually see the real color you're mixing.
Absolutely.
So tell us, this is a nice pink, or this is a dull beige, or something like that.
Right. I will definitely do my best on that, and remind me from time to time, please. Yeah, I will definitely try to do that. And that is something that's very interesting. I mean, I can see the monitor right now, and these colors seem a little better than last time. I've adjusted the lights that I set up a little bit to be a little more color correct. If you were with me a couple classes ago or semesters ago, the colors were coming out very hot. And that may happen again here. What I'm going to do with this is a 12 by 16 painted onto a birch panel wood. I've painted the edges black, just like this one here. And then I've protected the edges with blue tape. I don't know if you can see that. No, probably not. I've protected the edges with blue tape. So that way, when the painting's done, I can just go and remove the tape, and I've got this nice little painting to present.
Michael, didn't you mix something with the black edges so it's more durable?
Yes, I do. I put gloss gel into it. So yeah, you can see the shine on that. If I just use like a black gesso, fingerprints, scratches, everything else, with this, I use 2/3 black gesso, which is a very high pigment load paint, and 1/3 of gloss acrylic gloss gel. And yeah, it makes this really nice shiny surface. Still scratches a little bit. I'll have to fix that up before I present it to a gallery or wherever. This is just a design that I just kind of came up with. I had just some really pretty grays left over at the end of one of my painting days, and I could kind of see in those colors kind of what you see here. I could kind of see some warm fields going back to cooler colors, and the interesting bluey purple grays against the oranges. It's a very nice, very basic. I'm going to walk and talk you through this. I don't care for your painting to end up looking like this. And I'm also going to do a second painting after this one. You can choose if you want to do both, or if you want to do one, or if you don't want to do any, that's fine. And or if you want to completely do your own scene. But I thought this was kind of a fun. It has the different elements, the super bright, the mids, and the darks. Okay, everybody okay with that as my first reference? So again, it's just kind of a made up scene, but if you live out here in rural Oregon, or right on the border of rural Oregon, you get a lot of these nice little rolling fields and trees kind of separating the fields. And then I added in kind of a little path. What I'm going to do is I'm going to tone my canvas a little bit here. Oh, and before I do that, before my hands get too much dirtier, I just want to show you the first book. Each week I'll try to share a book with you guys. This is really hard to read. It says A History of American Tonalism. If you cared to buy a book on tonalism, this one's huge. This is kind of the main book. They've just reissued it, so it's affordable again. What happens is it'll sell out, and then it will become very expensive. The author is still alive and still presenting. But anyways, if you're going to buy one book on tonalism, this would be the one I would suggest. I wish the colors, the paintings were bigger in the book. It's very, there's a lot of words, which I've never gone and read a whole art book.
What do all those words say?
Yeah, tonalist stuff. But anyways, it's my favorite book. It's the book I go to the most often. And it's also the book that gets quoted from and kind of used on tonalism. I'm not sure the price. I bet you it's easily over $100, but I'm not positive. But it was, I did buy mine off Amazon. I think maybe I got it from Powell's. I can't remember. Powell's Books in Portland. Anyways, I'll share some other books. Unfortunately, a lot of the other books I have gone out of print again. and are now like up to $600, $700 per book for some of them. And I do not understand why books on tonalism can be so very expensive. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to give this a quick tone. I'm going to use my Indian yellow, which again is very transparent. I'm going to grab a tiny bit of my quinacridone red, mix that in there. And I'm also going to grab just a little bit of my transparent earth red. So I've got all my most transparent colors there. I just it's going to make just a nice warm color. In fact, it looks like it's going to be quite hot. Maybe I'll grab a little more of my earth red. So again, it's my Indian yellow, my quinacridone red, which is for some of you is going to be kind of like your alizarin red. It's kind of your more purpley red. I like quinacridone just because it is more vibrant than alizarin, and I can always neutralize the color if I need to. Yeah, very warm. Look at how red that is. Add a little more paint thinner to that. This is where I make my joke about if I would just stop now, I could sell it for way more as an abstract painter. And I'm just going to take a paper towel and just give that a little bit of a wipe down. What this does is it kind of helps, well, it spreads out the paint. It also helps absorb some of that paint thinner that's in there. I don't want it a super slippery, super drippy surface to work on. You do not have to tone your canvases if you prefer not to. This is just something I'm going to present to you and you guys can decide. I'm going to also show you 2 different ways of starting your painting today. So that's one of the reasons I want to do 2 different scenes. This is going to be the more traditional kind of sketching out my big shapes. The next painting I'm going to do, I'm just grabbing another little paper towel because it was still kind of slippery. So I grabbed one more paper towel. I'm just lightly going over it, picking up that paint thinner. The next painting I'm going to do is going to be called a subtractive style, which I know some of my students in the past have really gravitated towards and really had a good time. And others are just like, yeah, I'm never doing that again. Thank you very much. So anyways, I start my paintings both methods. And in fact, I even have a third method using acrylic paints that I've been starting some paintings lately. And I will talk to you guys about that in future classes. So anyways, sometimes I completely pre-stain my canvases. Like they'll be totally dry, like I'd stain them, weeks ahead of time. And other times I kind of like the little bit of slip and the little bit of action that I get in this kind of wet surface. I kind of equate it to like drawing on a whiteboard. It's very fluid. I can change things around. It's very easy. Now I'm going to grab my earth red. And you will probably notice that a lot of when I do drawing, a lot of times I use reds. And you'll kind of, if you looked at many of my paintings, you'll go, oh yeah, of course you do. I see those reds a lot of times around the structures of things. It's just kind of a personal choice. Another color that I like to draw with is purples. Purples seem to disappear really nicely because they can go any direction towards blues, greens, purples, reds. They can disappear pretty quickly. But anyways, experiment, try things. I'm going to keep presenting ideas to you. Nothing I do is right and nothing I do is wrong. And that's going to be the same for you. What you're going to hopefully learn is ways that you enjoy working, ways that seem to speak to you and your creative process. All I'm trying to do is give you tools to help express yourself, right? If this was a poetry class, I wouldn't be telling you how to write a poem but I would be giving you the, you know, here's how to write, here's how to spell, here's how to, you know, put a sentence together. Now you've got some tools that you can help express yourself with. And that's the same with painting, is different ways of applying and using the paint and different ways of thinking about the process. Not to overly give you guys too much information or too many things to work on this first week. But if you've been a student of mine in the past, you know that typically I hold my brush most often like a conductor, right? I don't, or I try not to hold it like a pencil. I don't know why I always put my pinky out. I don't know what else to do with it, I guess. I don't draw like I would with a pencil very often. It's generally like this. I'm also not drawing perpendicularly to my surface very often, or painting very perpendicularly, meaning straight into it. What I'm doing oftentimes, and this is kind of what gets in the way, my arm gets in the way of when I'm doing demos, is that I want my painting, my brush horizontal along the painting surface. When I want to push in, I will bring it perpendicular and I can, you know, push the paint a little longer. But most of the time it's a softer, you know, just kind of a thing that I will do with my brush sideways. And you'll see when I'm being comfortable, my hand will be at the very end of my brush. When I'm a little more uncomfortable or I need more pressure, I can choke up on it a little bit. But generally, I want my arm fairly well extended. For those of you who don't know, I have a great big workbench in between me and my painting. So I can't even get super close to my paintings. I have a 2-foot space between, and I want to keep my arms extended generally. Again, that's just kind of a general rule. So see if during these 8 weeks of class, if you have traditionally painted like this most of the time, see if you can work on, and it's not easy, it really isn't, to make this transition, but see if you can work on holding your brush slightly differently and see how that feels. Of course, it's going to feel uncomfortable in the beginning, but what it allows for is for me to make so many more marks. If you notice, this is a flat, meaning that the top of the brush is sheared off. That's kind of got a weird shape. Like if I wanted it to just draw with it, I would have it shaped more like a pencil, right? Just with a point, and then I would be just drawing. With a paintbrush, we have this flattened image, shape, or whatever shape brush you have. You know, there's so many different types, like this one with its super long brush bristles, Egbert. It wants to make calligraphy. It wants to make really interesting marks. It wants to make all sorts of marks all really quickly. So that if you're holding it like a pencil, you're just going to make the same mark over and over and over. If you hold it like a baton, like a conductor, you'll find that you're able to make lots more expressive marks. And basically, you're letting the brush fulfill its destiny. You're letting the brush do what it was born and built to do when you let it make lots and lots of interesting marks. And you can change the pressure really easily. And anyways, you're going to have more fun doing that, I think. So something else to work on. Sorry to load your plate so much here. Getting my earth red on there. I could add just a drop. I've got paint thinner right here with my brushes in it. When you add paint thinner to your oils, please only dip the corner of your brush in. Don't load it and then turn your oils into water paints. Okay, you want just a little bit more slick. And it also helps if you've heard of building their paintings up from thin to thick or from lean to fat. Paint thinner it basically thins down the fat in the paint, and it builds, you know, you can build up a nice surface. If you add too much paint thinner, the paint thinner works as a solvent or as like dish soap when you're breaking up the fat on the, you know, your baking pans. And so if you had too much of that, the oil is the glue. So if you break it up too much, you've destroyed the adhesion to your surface. So you don't want to have too much paint thinner. But you can add a little bit, and that's actually, I don't have any mediums on here today besides a little bit of my Gamsol, the paint thinner. All right, let's look at our big shapes. Can't quite see it. Can't quite see it. All right. But basically the bottom is where my information is. The sky is going to be nice and loose. So I'm going to look for one line kind of coming across and down. And again, feel free to completely doctor this up. You don't, it does not need to be a paint along unless you want it to be. You know, you can do whatever you want for this painting. I just want the light, medium, dark. That's what I'm looking for in your first week's tonalist painting is all. Nice, simple 3-value painting. Values, again, meaning lights and darks. Right? So I got a hill here in the foreground with kind of a trail. Maybe I'll turn this trail a little more this time than my concept painting. All right, I got a little trail there. I'm gonna create just a bare little dent in the hill there where the path has been worn down. I also created a counter angle over here, kind of like that. So I'll bring that in. So this one kind of takes our eye on this, and this is going to take our eye up here. Now, very loose and very brushy. I'm going to put in some tree shapes back here. If you notice, these trees aren't all just little puffs. They're all, every one of them slightly different. You know, they're maybe a little boring. Maybe I could have described them a little better. I think this one's got kind of a nice, interesting shape. And I did add a couple sky holes or negative shapes where the light is coming through. That will help. You don't want to overdo it. Okay, so be aware. You also don't want the negative shapes or the sky holes to be super, super repetitive, meaning like the same brush shape over and over and over. That's what you're, yeah. Try to give personality where you can. So I'm gonna have a little bit of a hill coming down here as well. And that's gonna be more hinted at. Okay, let's bring my tree. And I'm just gonna very quickly give myself a very rough tree because I can come back in and fix that up as a little bit. Another little tree shape. Let's just go ahead and fill that in for simplicity's sake so you guys can see it. Another little, maybe taller, little skinnier tree, some bushes. Now these trees are further away, right? These trees are kind of up close, so I can make them bigger. They could be as big as I want. I can make them pine trees and take them all the way up. These are kind of more bush shaped, a little more oak, possibly kind of that arch shape of a tree. You could have different kinds of trees, whatever you want. Let's bring a little line of trees back here. Again, these guys are smaller than these generally to, this tree's kind of coming down along that little counter angle that I put there, kind of a separation in the trail or in the fields. And feel free to like leave a space open. That also allows the eye somewhere to go back to. Kind of, you know, our eye likes to travel through a painting. And I also bring another tree kind of about this size. Maybe I'll even have him kind of overlap these guys. I'm just having fun. As you know, I'm just not taking any of it too serious. It's just, you know, just seeing what works, what feels good. You know, I would want to step back and say, you know, does that have a good feeling to it? You know, or you know what, maybe this tree bumping into this tree here is confusing. Maybe I need to chop it down a little bit and turn it back into like a bush. Everything's very flexible at this stage, very easy to repair. You know, this is where I like to say, you know, you can literally move mountains right now, right? You got your artistic license early on in this class. You can move mountains, you can change anything. All I'm looking for is an area that's going to be my lighter area, my mids, which can be my ground planes, and my darks. Okay, let's go ahead and push that a little bit already. And I'm going to take a tiny bit of paint thinner, just a touch, onto this towel. And I'm just going to give my sky a little bit of a wiping down here. Now I'm going to flip my paper towel over and I can wipe it down again, and that will just help pick up some of that paint. And this is just for my own clarity's sake, like, oh, okay, well, that sky is now lighter. And what I've done is I've already given myself a three-tone painting. Sure, it's all red and brown right now. You know, I'm going to introduce my blacks and grays and other colors here in a minute, but I can see the design. I can see my beginning of my value structure already. Does that make sense, you guys?
Yes.
Yes.
I will do this when I'm outdoors plein air painting too, because I can see my underlying structure so quickly. And I like I said, everything's very mobile. I can change my mind. I can morph things. I can, you know, move trees, add mountains, move mountains. I could experiment with what if there was a pond here? You know, what if instead of this trail right here was the edge of a pond?
So Michael, when you chose the yellow tone for the canvas, was that because of your subject matter that you were going to tackle, or is that just your go-to toning combination?
It is oftentimes my go-to toning.
Okay.
Because I like warm colors underneath generally. And you'll kind of see when I add the grays and some of the darks in a little bit here. Yeah, kind of a path.
So if that's a color or a tint that tends to work for you, or if I were to find that that worked for me, is there any reason I couldn't tone my canvas with acrylic?
No, 100%. Yeah, great question. I definitely tone a lot of my canvases, like when I'm priming them and gessoing them and getting them ready. And in fact, this weekend I will be demoing as part of my show out at the coast 3 days straight. And so I have to take, you know, because I'm out at the coast, I have to take my panels with me. So yeah, I went ahead, and what I do is I mix my acrylic paint into my gesso. It's fine. So there we go. Now it's a creek or a pond instead. Don't love it, but you know, I'm just kind of showing that I can be pretty creative. Everything's very mobile at this stage. Have fun, experiment, try some different things out. Let's bring our path back in. Sorry, path.
So another question,
please.
On these box boards that you paint on, do they come with a gesso coating, or you have to gesso them?
They come either way. I generally buy them with the first coat of gesso, but it's very smooth. In fact, this one is just the original store-bought gesso. It's very smooth. I oftentimes like a little bit more absorbency in my gesso and in my underpainting. So I will oftentimes add 1 or 2 more coats. I also like a cheaper gesso, which is kind of lucky and funny. My favorite gesso for my painting style is the Liquitex acrylic gesso. It's one of the cheapest, one of the easiest to find, and has this slight absorbency to it. What's nice about this is right now how it is with the store-bought pre-primed board is that it is very slippery. I mean, I could get this all the way back to white still if I wanted to. Just with a little bit of paint thinner and a little bit of elbow grease, I can really get this thing back to light because it's not very absorbent. Yeah, but I personally generally prefer a little bit of more tooth, a little bit more texture to my surface. And that's something you're all going to have. Everybody's different. You know, some people only can paint on oil prime surfaces. Some people only like linen. Some people only like canvas. You know, painted with Russians who paint on what appears to be a potato sack with so much texture. Everybody has their own choice, and you'll just learn that as you paint. I'm going to go ahead and add my darks in real quick, just so we can see those. So I'm going to add some blobs of dark, and then I'm going to manipulate those. And
what colors did you mix there?
Oh, thank you. That is my Payne's gray, and looks like I mixed a little bit of burnt umber. Another way I like to mix darks, if I'm not used, I'll often don't have black. I don't have a dark color on my palette a lot of times. So I will mix my French ultramarine, a little bit of my cad red, and just a touch of lemon yellow. And hard to see. When I mix those three together, I get an exceptionally dark color. And I like it because the more blue I add, the cooler the dark is, the more red I add, the warmer the dark is. So it makes me see into the shadows a little bit. Like, is it a warmer shadow, a cooler shadow, or what color, you know, do I want it to be, a warmer shadow or a cooler shadow? And I actually think having a cool shadow against this nice warmer might work. Typically, if you have a cool light source, you're going to have warmer shadows. You know, not crazy warm, but just warmer. And if you have a warmer light source, your shadows will appear cooler. If you've, you know, been at the beach during a nice sunset and seen your own shadow or the shadow of your group you're with, you'll notice that often those shadows on the white sand or on the golden sand will appear almost purple or blue. And that's because you have that nice golden light, and the contrasting shadow colors will appear very cool. So that's something we can use and play with as we build up our tonalist paintings. A lot of times what I will like to do is the base of my trees and shrubs will be kind of the darkest, and then they get a little lighter as they progress up. Or I like to think, like in this one, that's going to be kind of the underside of the shrub, whereas the light will be enveloping, kind of coming around the top of this. Let's get some darks in here. What I'm going to do for these trees back here is I'm going to add a little bit of, let's just add a little white, make it a cooler gray. So I lighten that up a little bit, so it's not as dark. And what that's going to do is I'm going to put that into my shadows back here, and I'm going to hope that that helps ever so slightly push these back into, it's sure appearing very dark. Let's go ahead and push it a little bit more and make it even a little bit lighter so that it shows up on your guys' screens. Yeah, there I went to quite bluish, purpley, mauve-y color, which is going to contrast really nicely against those. I don't know if you can see a difference in the darks at all, but look at how messy that is. What a horrible painting. But what I've done is I've got some paint down. So I'm just going to grab another brush, clean it a little bit here. And I'm just going to give these trees a little bit of shape real quickly. And I'm just thinking big, nice, interesting tree shapes. I'm going to go ahead and add a touch of my Venetian Red because that color is so transparent that I have on the panel. I want a little more opacity. And that my Venetian Red should do that for me a little bit. And in fact, let me show you something that's kind of fun for those of you who haven't been in my class before. One of my very, a tool I use a lot are the chip brushes. Sometimes they get really worn down and get really crazy shapes. And I will oftentimes just quickly, I like using them because they force me to make organic shapes. I just can't be too exacting. And that's kind of what I want right now. There we go. Now they're starting to look like trees, my little blobs of browns and darks and grays. Doesn't take a whole lot. Our brain will just kind of go, yep, those are trees, those are bushes. They're kind of, you know, silly a little bit. Let's bring out another favorite tool. All right. Can you guys even see what I'm holding up there? Q-tips. So in the design phase, sometimes it's fun to take your Q-tips. Let's see if I can zoom in a little more with that camera. There we go. You guys able to see that okay? I'm going to come in and I'm going to give some negative shapes in here just with these Q-tips.
That is awesome.
Isn't that fun? Yeah, I mean, I love playing. I love to experiment and just try different mark making tools. When I started, it was very much just like one or two different types of brushes. Here's another tool. This is used for doing silk screening, for rubbing that, but it's a nice big piece of rubber with these kind of interesting different shapes around it. I can use that and like almost literally like an eraser and come in and give myself some interesting shapes. Just kind of pushing the paints around a little bit. I don't want to get too crazy. I'm already getting busy with the sky holes there. Less is more often when it comes to sky holes. I hate to say it, but I will say it. A lot of times I can really tell a beginner painter when that they've just discovered the joy of sky holes because it's just thousands of them. So just kind of be aware that, you know, and you'd also, like when I'm using a Q-tip, it's very easy to make the same mark over and over because it only makes, you know, one Q-tippy kind of mark. So what I will do is do this kind of carving out of shapes. And then I will come back in with my brush and manipulate those shapes so that they're not as redundant, repetitive, and anyways, they don't look so silly. And also remember that, you know, in some spaces you might want to really, you know, really get it, remove it completely. And then in other areas, maybe you just barely are touching it, like along the tops, and you're just kind of removing a little bit of it. And that'll help break up the monotony of it all as well. Sky holes and shaping with Q-tips. I just buy these, you know, of course, from Costco or the dollar store. The dollar store ones are firmer, meaning they don't kind of flake off. The cotton doesn't come off as quickly. The Costco ones are softer and I can do bigger passages. I also have ones that I buy from gun shops for, I'm not a gun owner or anything, but the Q-tips for cleaning guns are fantastic. They have all sorts of different shapes. They also have Q-tips for makeup artists that all come in all sorts of different shapes. And so, you know, I like to just buy and experiment. A student who went to Japan came back with these really strange ones for me. Yeah, have fun. Anyways, don't want to go too much into this. But now I've got my 3 values, don't I? Let's go ahead and mix up kind of my ground color. So I said that I kind of want like a bit of a kind of a olivey gray, I think, for my ground. So I'm going to go ahead and grab my Payne's gray, which again I use as a blue. It's just an exceptionally dark blue gray. I love it. It's very neutral. I'm going to grab a little bit of my yellow and mix it together there. And it makes a very olive color right away. Add some of my other colors here. I'll even add a little red. Red for, you know, whenever you're doing green, don't forget the red. Red is your great neutralizer when it comes to green. I'll show you really quickly. I'll go ahead and mix a very vibrant green by using my blue that leads towards green, and my yellow that leads towards green will make my most vibrant of greens. So very bright. Look at that difference between that green and the green down here that I mixed. I mean, that doesn't even look like green compared to that, but it is. But anyways, I've got a very vibrant, very springy, happy green, which is fine, but not what I'm looking for in today's painting. I want a nice neutral gray green. So I can just simply add a little bit of my red, because red and green are opposite each other on the color wheel, right? So they will neutralize each other. So let's add red to that green.
Was that the cadmium red?
Yeah. So very strong. Cadmium red is my most strong color on my palette, probably. And there you go. It's just a very neutralized green. I think I'll be able to use that now with today's other greens that I've got down here. Again, we can compare them to the very vibrant green right beside it. Look at that bright, bright green. And what it became, this kind of, yeah, I don't know. Depends on if you like it or not. You could either call it a puke green or a split pea green, or you could call it a beautiful gray brown green, depending on your opinion of the color. You get to name it. Another thing that I think about, I'm going to grab that color wheel, is when doing tonalism, a lot of times I will kind of lean towards a certain area on the color wheel. So my tonals might be, like in today's, a little more on the yellow warm side, or more towards the blues, more towards the reds, whatever else. But the other thing I think about a lot when I'm painting my more tonal, moody, atmospheric paintings is that none of these colors will really appear in it. It's all going to be neutralized colors in the middle. And I call those the colors that don't really have names. You know, if you hear me, if somebody says, what color did you just make? I'll just have to say, well, it's a greenish, reddish, brownish, gray color, right? That's where all the ish colors exist, are within the middle of the color wheel, where you're neutralizing and bringing them down. Okay, so let's go ahead and scrub in. That's really dark. Let's lighten it with yellow as opposed to lightening it with white. Maybe just a touch of white, but not very much, because it'll get pasty looking, and I want it to look like grasses. And I'm just looking to cover the area for right now. I'll come back in and you know, paint describe my areas, the grasses and whatever else is going on in there here in just a little bit. But right now I'm just kind of testing colors, seeing what happens if I just, they need to still be a little lighter, I think. Otherwise, their reading is really, if we squint our eyes, they're really quite dark, almost reading similar to the trees. So I'm going to go ahead and bring a bit of lighter green, especially against, or at least kind of close to that line of trees back there. And this brush is actually one of my good ones, so I don't want to do much kind of scrubbing with it. So I'm just going to grab a little bit rougher of a brush here and just scrub in this color real fast. And I'm, again, just keeping things simple. I'm just looking for big shapes, big colors, big values. And then I'm going to come back in and I'm going to refine those once I've shown that that I like what's going on and that it's working. I'm thinking kind of big puzzle pieces, right? There's some natural transitions going on in the color where it's kind of a little more transparent. It's got this warmth showing through. It's a little more opaque in other areas. Let's bring in a little dark down in here. Big, simple, puzzle-shaped pieces. Let's go ahead and make another color back there. I'm just kind of adding yellow to basically the cools that I put back there. We'll see if that's enough of a transition. I want this field back here just to be a little different than the foreground field. Any questions, you guys, as I'm doing this? I feel like I'm just talking a lot here and covering a lot. This making sense how I just kind of build up a nice, simplistic, big shapes, big values.
Michael, I don't want to backtrack too much, but what did your surface feel like once you did begin to lay down the color? Was it slippery or just barely?
Barely slippery, but it is slippery, yeah. I can definitely, move things around very easily still. It is pretty slick. That's kind of the reason I don't like this really slippery surface. I like a little bit more tooth and a little bit more catch. I up until recently, up until probably a couple years ago, painted primarily on cotton, cotton stretched on panels. So that's what I got used to. I never was a linen guy, just probably because I'm a cheap guy with some of my supplies. Yeah, so definitely good question. Definitely does have some slick to it. I've got my path here. Let's make it a little bit on the browner side, kind of a dirt path, but I don't want to make it like a bright brown. So I'm going to go towards kind of what I hope will be kind of a grayed down brown color for my path. And I'm just looking for harmony in my colors as I go ahead.
Any possibility you could zoom in so we could see your brush strokes for a bit?
Sure, there's not, I mean, unfortunately, no, I can't really zoom in because how the camera is set. So I'm hoping with the new camera that will be coming, hopefully today or tomorrow, I will have a zoom capability. I used to be able to zoom with this camera, but then it was going in and out of focus constantly.
I've seen that happen.
I apologize for that. I can always hold it up. Right now, there's not much as far as brush strokes. I'm just kind of covering kind of ad hoc. I will come back in.
You're covering ground, literally.
Literally covering ground, about to cover some sky. Yeah, that's, that right now they kind of blend together. But once I come back in and add some more darks onto the edges of that path, we'll be able to see path a little better. Let's get into that sky real quick. So we've got this kind of nice yellowy orangey color. It's a little more orange than is showing on the monitor. The monitor is appearing pretty yellow. So I'm going to go ahead and grab some of my Payne's gray, again, just using it as a shortcut color. I've got also this pile of gray that I built yesterday. I'm going to turn it to a little more purple by adding a little bit of my quinacridone red. Got really purple. Let's knock that down a little bit more. I'm going to go ahead and let it get pretty dark as it goes towards the top. Just like my reference, my light is kind of going to be coming across the mid area here. So let's go ahead and scrub in some nice dark. Woo, getting moody already. Just having fun with the sky. You decide, if you want it to be a little more realistic or a little more detail or whatever you want. Again, I'm just kind of rushing through because I'd like to hopefully get to a second painting today as well. All right, let's go ahead and bring in a little bit of yellow, a little Indian yellow, a little. It's gonna still kind of go towards gray a little bit because my brush is kind of messy, and I'm okay with that because it's gonna have a nice harmony to it. Haven't really cleaned my brush much. And even just bring a little bit of that color down into here. I'll blend that in a little bit, but I just want to bring some of that sky color down. You'll see it in just a little bit when I kind of start to clean up and sculpt things. Sometimes I like to treat my paint almost like clay. So right now you can almost picture it like I'm putting out my clay, and then I'm going to come through and I'm going to start sculpting it by, removing areas and finalizing, giving some detail. But right now I just want to have enough stuff to be able to move it around and play with it. And look at that, beginning of a sky. So I'm just kind of making a lighter and a little bit warmer colors down low. I'm going to let that transition up to my darker sky. Just adding more reds in that kind of transition area. There we go. So by covering it, now I can see kind of where the warmth and the glow is a little more special. When I had so much warmth and brightness on there, it wasn't special, right? And I'll still probably want to come back in and figure out which of these areas do I want to emphasize and let be, where the glow is more and where's, you know, a little more special. But there you can see in a very, very basic, very quick, very rough 3 values. So again, what I would do is come back in, start refining these shapes, making things cleaner, prettier. What I've done is I've tested my values. I've got my light, my mids, and my darks. And then I can come through and tighten up where I want it tightened up. Give more structure. I could bring in flowers. I could bring in different types of grasses. I can bring in, you know, darks and lights and everything else. Any question so far? No? Okay. Let's go ahead and add a little bit more highlight into that sky so that I can neutralize the rest of it. So I'm going to get some really nice bright light, and I'm going to have it going across there. Let's get some nice, pretty kind of peach color to go alongside it. And what I'll start to do is just kind of carving in to these shapes. Notice it's a very light touch. I want my sky to be darker. I let it get too light. So let's get some of that dark back, shall we? I'm going to bring it down here. It's getting a little too stripy and a little too interesting up high in the sky. I want to keep the focus down here. So that's kind of why I just kind of drew it out and then just kind of added a bunch more dark. I'm just going to kind of make this not interesting up here because I want to keep the viewers down along my horizon line, kind of going down, going back into here. That's my goal. I don't mind if they look up here and admire the dark, gloomy sky, but I don't want them to focus up here. I want it to just be a part of the story, part of the element, but it's not the story. All right. Go back to the lower part of the sky. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use some of the paint that's there. So I can go ahead and clean my brush. I've got enough paint on here that I can use that to get in and kind of carve out the shapes where I want them. Meaning I'm going to push against that red kind of halo that I have on those trees. I don't mind it. In fact, I kind of like it. I just don't want so much of it. Again, if you want something to be special, you usually have to have kind of less of it and then kind of the opposite of it as well. So to have warms, oftentimes you need cools. To have brights, you need some darks. To have, you know, this nice glowy shrubbery halo feel on the trees. I'm going to also want to get rid of a lot of it. So it's kind of funny. The more I get rid of it, the more it appears to kind of glow where I leave it. I hope. And a lot of times what I might even do is, you know, refine it a little further, but I might actually even step away from it for the day. Like let this first stage and then let it kind of tack up if I want to build more paint into it. You know, there's a big movement for alla prima, meaning painting all at once, all within a day, which is wonderful and great and a good challenge. But there's nothing that says we have to do that. You can definitely let your painting build up and use layers. In fact, during this class, we'll be talking about glazing later on and some different tricks that you can use to do some differing effects that are wonderful in tonalist paintings. So, and also don't judge yourself on how fast, you know, I'm painting. I'm trying to get a lot done, a lot covered, just to show you guys. There's no race in painting unless it's a quick draw, I guess. But just let the painting take as long as it wants to, as long as you can give it. And you know, don't get nervous because your painting's taking a long time, you know, longer than you thought or whatever else. Just adding a little more darks to kind of the base of the trees a little bit, a little cooler down here where less light is getting through the trees. And I'm just kind of shaping things a little bit more. Kind of wondering what I should do with the grass here. I've got this kind of interesting color, but it's painted really horribly, just kind of blobbed on there, which I guess was the goal at the time. And you know, how much refining should I do now, or should I let it kind of dry and give it shape? What I think I'm going to do is probably come back to this one and let that kind of be the underpainting for my grasses. And I come through, and what I would like to do, if you guys are okay, is take a little break, get a glass of water, and I'm going to go ahead and start the other painting, unless you guys see anything here that's just really eating you up inside and you just can't let me leave it alone. Are you guys okay? Did that first kind of little demo make sense? Are you guys still there? Did I lose everybody?
I have a request.
Sure.
Could you take a picture with your iPhone or something so that we can see, and later post it on the Facebook group so we can see actually the detail of it? Because
yes,
in my video, I see this beautiful balanced painting, but I can't really see the detail.
Yeah, wait till you see how ugly and unbalanced it is. And
that's exactly what I need to see, because when I paint, I say, this is so ugly, and I get very discouraged. And I need to realize that other people have ugly stages too.
Yeah, great point. And yeah, I will go ahead and interject with that. I like to, you know, tell people that their painting has to have its awkward teenage years. You know, it's all zitty and awkward and knees are knocking and everything else. And, you know, you kind of let it grow and materialize. I like to think of it like a Polaroid picture, you know, where it just slowly starts to develop and become a thing. Yeah, so that's true. It's hard not to judge our paintings the whole way through. I completely understand that. But we just kind of have to have faith that, you know, trust the process. When I'm doing quick, you know, outdoor paintings or the dueling easels or the, you know, quick draw events, I literally have the mantra in my head of Trust the process. Trust the process. The painting will come. And yeah, so good point. And remember to step back. A painting's not really meant to be viewed from super duper close, especially my paintings. My paintings are best at about a 3, 4, 5 foot distance. I hope, maybe they're best from all the way across the gallery. I don't know. But, I like it when people step up close and be like, oh my God, the painting just falls apart. It's just kind of a crazy, just bunch of weird shapes and really hard a lot of glare. Oh, and it's not focused there. So yeah, I will take a photo. But anyways, there we go. We've got kind of our first tonalist. The point being, and do however you want, whatever design you want to do, it doesn't have to be this, I'm sure you guys are all going to do better jobs than this anyways, is light, mid, dark. That is the goal for first week. Okay. Super nice, super simple. My next one I'm going to do is going to be a subtractive painting. So what I will do is quickly, before we take our break, I'm going to scrub on the yellow. And what happens if I scrub on the yellow and let it sit for the 5-10 minutes while we take a break is it will stain the canvas, because I'm going to want this to kind of stay on there a little more than I did with the this would be a great opportunity to if you are into this, where I will go ahead and pre-paint my canvases with acrylic or gesso with acrylic paint in it, yellow or whatever. I've even been playing with gold gesso. Is a lot of fun to do for this technique. I actually have a tonalist painting that I did of a creek that I did with a gold gesso underneath, and I really liked it. See if I can't find that on my computer somewhere. I know I sold it a while ago, but see if I can find it and put it on the there we go, nice yellow surface. So let's take a let's even take a 10-minute break, you guys, if that's okay. Let me get a big glass of water. My throat's I'm out of painting shape here, or out of teaching shape. My throat isn't where it should be. And we will join back up at 11:10. I will be doing the last demo for the of this, and this is going to be the subtractive method of approaching a painting. And then we will do a little question and answer to close up our day. Sound good? 10 minutes. See you guys at 11:10.
Michael, I know you're not back yet,
I'm back.
but I just had a quick question.
Yep.
When you said an underpainting of gold, did you mean metallic gold?
Yeah.
Or just, oh, really? Okay. Wow.
Now let me clean this off and I'll show you the metallic gold gesso on a panel. All right, everybody should be slowly rolling back in. Thank you for letting me take a little break, catch my breath and all that, and clean my palette. Ready for the next. You can see here two different grays that those are just the paint. That's just cleaning the palette. And oftentimes I will, you just end up with some really beautiful grays. Or browns and taupes and whatever colors. So just kind of embracing that. I used to just mix all my colors into one big pile and you always end up with this kind of strange neutral greeny gray, seems like. And now I will separate them into like, oftentimes we'll just clean my cooler colors into one pile, my warmer colors into one pile. And then you get a warm gray and a cool gray. Anyways, just for those of you who are conscious of waste or how much oil paints cost, it's a way to get some really fun colors. So far this gray and these two brown taupes are both just clean up colors, and I'm happy with them. I think they're beautiful, and maybe I will think of a way to use them, but I can always just alter them too by adding other colors. Reloading my palette real quick.
Hey, Michael.
Yes.
This is Michelle. You mentioned gold gesso acrylic. Is that like gold metallic or just gold colored like what's on your canvas right now?
Great question. Same question that
Kate asked.
who was that?
I said Kate asked that earlier, but she wasn't around.
Ta-da!
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, very
Wow.
different. Here is with yellow added into the gesso, and it's just one of those little throwaway cardboard panels. And I just went ahead and, again, I like a little more gesso on them. I love playing with these. In fact, I was thinking about doing this one on this because I have no idea what I'm even going to paint. Literally no idea. So I thought maybe I should do it on a throwaway panel, but what if it works? I can always wipe it off too if it doesn't at the end of the class. You guys won't know. But anyways, yeah, it's gold gesso. Literally, it's not the cheapest, but it's not
Pretty.
Yeah, and it's fun to paint on. I've got a little tiny painting that I did of Italy on there. Let's see if we can even see the gold. I covered most of it. So that's the kind of funny thing. just a little building on a hill. But within the ground and stuff, there's like the flakes of gold showing through, and I left some of it showing through in the building. You really can't see it, so not a great
Really
example.
pretty.
So that's so medieval.
Yeah, well, that's Italy. Yeah. Yeah. So here's mixing a little bit of pink and yellow into the gesso, and just yellow into the gesso. So it makes kind of a creamier. It's not like bright yellow like this one. You know, it's kind of a creamy pinky yellow. I just like warm colors underneath. Just a note though, when you're starting out, it can make it very hard to judge your colors, especially a really bright yellow like you have up there. I sometimes think I'm maybe doing a disservice to some people by showing this, because, you know, if you're trying to mix blues and greens to show up properly on here, it's really hard until you get your colors kind of covering the whole thing to actually be able to read how colors are, because colors change but according to whatever they're next to. So when you're showing a bright yellow like this, it can become very difficult to see the color. So just a note, you may want to, one of my very favorite colors otherwise is that kind of transparent earth red. I love painting on that. Makes a nice neutral. For a while, I was literally just toning my canvases gray. You'll notice that my palette is gray. My great big palette here is gray. All of my plein air setups have gray palettes. And that's just because I can see the colors better here. So then it made sense that I would paint my panels gray as well, because then the colors will appear the same here as they do there. So just, you know, play with that. Again, if this yellow, if you're like, man, that looks like fun what Mike's doing there with that bright yellow, and then you try it and it's just nothing but heartache and headache and all that, you know, don't do it. You can come back to it in a couple of years after you've learned a little more about color mixing and everything else. All right.
I have another question really quickly. Could you tell me all of the paint colors you use in the 1980? I know that you said you used that for Payne's Gray and Burned Umber, and it looked like Venetian Red was also the 1980.
Yeah, and the truth is, besides the Payne's Gray and the Cadmium Red medium, I'm experimenting with the 1980s. I know that because I don't need super strong, because I paint with a lot of transparent colors. I don't need, in fact, I kind of don't want my cadmiums to be as strong, and the 1980s are half the price. And because I'm trying to neutralize my colors constantly, I don't need that vibrancy. So, you know, 1980s are always going to be a little bit weaker. The pigment load, the amount of pigment mixed into the oil paints, that's how they make them cheaper, right? There's more pigment.
Dr. Latley said there's about a third less pigment in the 1980s as there is in the others.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And those who don't know, Scott Gallatley is a Portland artist who also teaches at Oregon Society of Artists. I strongly suggest some of his classes. His Abstracting the Landscape class is one of my favorite workshops I've ever taken. But he also—
And the reason he knows is that he was the person at Gamblin who actually made many of these colors.
Exactly. I was going to say he worked at Gamblin for years and years and years. And he is my go-to guy still, even though he's retired from Gamblin. But he'll always be my go-to color buddy.
What's his name?
Scott Gallatley. He does kind of abstract, very colorful landscapes. Besides the fact that he's landscapes, his and my paintings are very different from each other. Even though we show together in a couple of different galleries and good friends, and we go out and paint together. And
both equally delicious.
Thank you. I have found that the Venetian Red is plenty strong for me. In fact, I'm still trying to figure out how to use it properly. Are you guys okay if I do a little experimenting in front of you? I'm kind of thinking it might be fun to do the Venetian Red and the Payne's Gray mixed together on here and then do my subtractive painting. I have no idea how it's going to look. Are you guys okay if I do a little experimenting, or would you rather see?
I would ask you, how transparent is the Payne's Gray
It's quite transparent.
and the Venetian Red?
Is not at all.
What would you normally use if this is an experiment?
I would probably use either my cadmium quinacridone red and my transparent earth red, either or both, and French or the ultramarine. I'm trying to stop calling it French ultramarine. That's just a bad habit from all the way back to college. Ultramarine. What I find, I showed you that mixture to make the dark. I'm out of my ultramarine. I mean my transparent earth red, but transparent earth red, which up until this year kind of was, I say I have guest colors. It almost wasn't a guest color anymore because I had it on my palette so often, but I've since started taking it off. I don't use it as much. But one of the reasons I really liked it is because I like it for drawing and sketching. I do like the warm, because look at when it gets thin, how beautiful and warm it gets. Really beautiful. Block that glare. That really warm, beautiful. It's kind of like a sepia color. But what I really like about it too is when I mix it with French ultramarine, it's almost like an instant beautiful black. And it's the same like that mixture I showed you before. The more earth red I throw into it, the warmer it gets. The more ultramarine I throw into it, the cooler it gets. That one, I picked up a little bit of white on accident. So I can have it's hard to see, I know, on the monitor, but this side, trust me, is bluer, cooler. This side's warmer, redder, but both very, very dark. So it allows for this kind of, I think that so many artists miss out on the darks in their paintings because they just put in dark. If you're using black, they just grab the black. And I say, no, especially for me, darks can be a big part of my painting. Let's look into them. It sounds like a metaphor for looking into our souls, but let's look into those darks and, let's look and let's find the beauty in there, and let's find the colors and the temperature shifts and the shapes and the different things. They don't have to be as described or as pronounced as the things in the light. I don't know. I just mixed up that color and I'm really liking that. Maybe that would be my to-go, or normal would be the transparent earth red and French ultramarine. The problem.
Okay, so what's different about this that you just mixed up? Which ones have you?
That's my normal would be the earth red and the and the ultramarine. Let's see what happens. Pull some aside, and let's see what happens if I mix the Venetian red.
So my guess, and your results may be different, is that because the Venetian red is semi-opaque, that you won't get as many of those velvety, glowing, luminous, little corners between the light and the dark.
Yeah, it's so strong. I'm kind of glad I just did that test. I know that glare is a little bit, but yeah, this is that color with a little bit of the Venetian red, and you can see how strong that Venetian red is, even though it's the cheap version of it, the 1980 version. I am not going to do that. Thank you.
Well, thank you. You saved us an experiment.
Yeah, well, that was enough experiment, huh?
Let's see what happens if I mix Payne's Gray with it. So it gets nice and dark. It's very warm still. Maybe I'll use some of this color over the top of whatever design we come up with. What I want to do for this next one, let me squeeze out a little more paint while I'm talking here. What I want to do for this one is kind of similar to the last one with a light, medium, and a dark, but this one's going to have much less ground. It's going to have much more dark and much more light. Okay. This one is going to be about trees reflecting in water. If you were in my summer class, I did a quick little demo, kind of like this. It was a ton of fun. And you can just be almost as loose as you want and as gestural as you want. And that's what I feel like doing as we kind of celebrate our last 35 minutes of our first class. And let's just have fun. And I urge you to, you know, do your first one with the 3 different values, and then celebrate and do something like this. Just have fun, be splashy. Maybe it ends up abstract, not mine won't, but maybe yours does, and that's fine. You can have abstract tonalism, which can be really, really cool. There's an artist named David Sharp, who I just love his work so very much. Luckily, he just survived cancer, and he's back to painting and sharing his work and really kind of rejoicing his second chance at life. And anyways, I've always liked his work. It's been a lot of fun. And I kind of, you know, I was really bummed out when I heard he was almost passed away. So I'm going to mix French ultramarine, or just ultramarine. It's going to be a lifelong challenge. I've said French ultramarine for so long. Ultramarine and my transparent earth red. And I'm going to let the more warm side of it, meaning more transparent earth red, towards the top. And as I go down, it's going to be more French, more ultramarine mixed into it. So it gets cooler, a little bit darker as it goes down. And at about this point is going to be a bank of land. And then from there is going to be reflections in water. Can you see it? Let's see if I can. Let's see if I can actually do that thing I just said. And then I will come back in and I will design those said trees, bank, and reflection by doing a subtractive painting process, which again is something I use a lot. It's very, very fun for me. It's very organic. It's very freeing. And some of you will love it. And some of you will curse my very name for even asking you to attempt it. So here we go. We're going to make our bank approximately here. Okay. So imagine that is, this is water, this is sky. Just a touch of paint thinner in there, just a touch. Cool. Just using my cheap little shop brushes. So when I'm painting like this, I'm sort of thinking trees. I'm sort of thinking, you know, what I just described, but mostly I'm not. I'm just thinking, is that an interesting shape? Did I just make an interesting mark? You know, I'm just letting the brush kind of dance. And that's what I mean by just the joy of it. It's so fun and just liberating and free. And now I'm adding in my a little more of the transparent earth red. I wanted some dark, heavy areas, and then I know that I want some warm areas. And you'll see when I come back in and remove the paint, you'll see that difference, I hope. I like to overpromise. But I hope.
So what did you call that brush?
Just a chip brush. It's like a cheap 35-cent brush you'd use to do like the corners and stuff in your house, and the kind of brush you use.
Is it?
Anything. It's 35 cents. It's a 1 inch. I have 1 inch, 1.5 inch. I have all the different.
Are those synthetic bristles?
No, they're not.
So they're actually,
Well,
there's
actually,
some kind of.
this one is synthetic, and you see it's keeping its shape much better. But I actually, this one right now is throwing hairs, and they're always throwing hairs. They're the cheapest brushes ever.
Oh yeah.
I'm gonna move the camera, sorry, just so I can't get to my brushes. That drawer
Oh my gosh.
is just brushes and brushes and brushes and brushes. Over here, I've got lots of cheap ones, shop brushes. Literally, when I go to Home Depot and Lowe's and stuff, I buy them. Look at this beauty.
Yeah.
It's destroyed, and I'll use it because it's so fun. So anyways, I have those brushes. I'm going to show you over there. Oh, you can't see it, but you see that tall, you see the plant over there behind the light?
Yeah.
Those are all hundreds of more brushes back there. Those are just the ones that are kind of on hiatus. Inside of that white chest there is probably another 200, 300 brushes. So brushes in my studio never get thrown away, hardly ever. They just get more and more beat up and become stranger and stranger. And I will oftentimes take like fingernail clippers or little tiny scissors and stuff to them. I'll even file them down, all sorts of things, just making interesting shapes with them. A lot of fun. I'm just warming up the last little bit of color that I got up there, and let's just all I'm trying to do is kind of mimic my shape top and bottom. It's so crazy looking. And let's just finish covering it. I know it's hard. Wow, really hard to see. That looks disgusting. But I can still kind of remember those first couple marks that I made in that tree and that little bit of calligraphy. It's still showing up a little bit in here. I'm hoping that I can preserve a little bit of that. We'll see. If not, we'll just create something else. Yeah, these things are so cheap. A screw just fell out of it. Just heard it clink on the table. All right, we're going to start the auctioning off at, just kidding. Let's see. So there we go. I've got a yellow surface with transparent earth red and French ultramarine. You can see where there's more paint and where there's more of the ultramarine is a little bit darker. I truly could have, I can make it really nice and smooth and even if I want. That was not great. That actually had a little bit of paint thinner in it. I didn't realize, so that's going to be a little bit troublesome. Let's see. Give me 1 second to kind of smooth that out a little bit so I don't just have streaks of paint thinner. Apologize. I'm just trying to kind of smooth out the paint. All right. We've got quite a bit of glare going on. Let's turn off this light and see if that helps. It's very shiny right now. Nope. Why is it so shiny? Whoa, so dark. All right, I'm gonna try turning off one other light and see if that helps. Okay, there we go. So very shiny. Let's do this brush. So I apologize. What happened was when I picked up that synthetic brush, it had a little bit of paint thinner on it. I wasn't aware of that. So I've put paint thinner where I didn't want it. So now what I'm going to do very quickly is just smoosh that around, so that otherwise I would just have these stripes of paint thinner that will pick up so much differently than the other areas. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
If wherever I put paint thinner will be much easier to pick up the paint. And I would rather control that a little bit. All right, very, very, very dark. Still retaining kind of a little bit of the light and dark in there, but not as much as before. That's going to be fine. And what I'm trying to do right now, these are Viva paper towels. I'm actually going to use my paper towels to paint with, or in actuality, unpaint with, I guess. I'm going to do subtractive. So I'd rather use these shop towels. They're a little stronger. So these blue shop towels I get from Costco are great for this exercise. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to paint the inverse. I was super dyslexic. I guess I probably still am, but you know, growing up and going to school and all that. And I don't know if that has anything to do with why I like this painting process so much, because it's kind of like the opposite of, you know, painting. It's removing paint. It's also very sculptural. And again, like I said, some of you, when you try this, are going to be like, wow, this changed my life. This is so interesting. And for others of you, you're going to hate it. And so that probably is a reflection on whether your brain is dyslexic or not dyslexic a little bit. I don't know. So let's bring some trees.
So Michael, if you're out painting on plein air with others, and here you are doing these incredible luminous gold lights sneaking up behind deep, deep, deep trees, don't the other painters go, whoa, how do you see that?
Yeah, I constantly am having to kind of tell them that I'm not there to be a journalist. I'm not there to paint. I'm there to get inspiration. I'm there to, you know, be with my friends partly, or, you know, with other painters.
Right, right.
But I'm also there just to let, I don't know, you just see different things. Nature always is coming up with, you know, like whatever I'm about to do here will probably be something that I kind of saw at some point in nature. And, you know, put into my memory banks, either by painting it or
Yeah,
by just observing, sitting. You know, I love silhouettes. I love the halo and the penumbra of the light as it envelops a surface. We all have our different things that we're attracted to, and that's, you know, that's what makes painting so fun, and that's what makes it so different and so interesting. And it's a great
Looks
thing.
like a forest fire.
It does look like a forest fire. Oh my gosh. Yeah, it really does. Wow. It's not quite as warm again in real life as it appears on the monitor, but kind of cool on the monitor. Well, it's kind of hot on the monitor. So I'm just constantly moving through my paper towels. Oops, sorry. My dad and mom are planning a trip to Montana to go visit my niece and nephew. And we got a bunch of gifts for them. So I think that's my dad letting me know he's coming to pick them up soon. Hopefully he calls my wife. And I'm just gonna, like I said, kind of keep replicating shapes a little bit. I don't care. I mean, it's nice when the reflection looks really like the thing that it's reflecting, but I found that I can get away with it being a little more organic and not being perfect. You know, you just give it a couple ripples and people are like, oh yeah, the water's moving. Of course, it's not reflecting exactly. Little bit of wind on the water. If it's a pond, will buy you a lot of leeway. What I'm going to do right now is I'm going to step back because being right up on it, it's really hard to quite see if what it's doing. And I want to say if it's doing what I want because I don't even know what I want hardly. Right now it's in the very organic stage, just kind of making some shapes and hoping that something interesting happens. If not, I've got my brush with all that paint on it and I can just do it again until I do get a shape that's interesting and fun. In fact, let's go ahead and this big hole that I cut into this tree. It's not very pretty. So there we go. Just unclear cut that tree. Hey, kind of begins to look a little bit like a tree and a bank and a water, a little bit. All right, give me 1 second to step back. I urge you guys to do that often during your painting process, is to get away from your canvas. Again, if you're, you're super judgy and your painting doesn't look right from, 7-10 inches away, get a couple feet away, get, 12 feet away and squint your eyes at it. And we're looking for big shapes. I'm just looking for interesting shapes right now. That's really about it. All right. Kind of like what's going on now. I'm going to go ahead and make some lighter lights. So I just put a little paint thinner on there. A little more. Now it's kind of revealing itself a little better. Starting to kind of peek through. Kind of again that that idea of the Polaroid camera, just kind of slowly letting things show up. It was so, when I was researching tonalists and, kind of like going, who am I? What's my place in this art world? You know, and we're all kind of do that as like, well, I like Monet and I like tonalists and I like impressionists and I like, you know, all these other artists. Where do I fit into this? But realizing in my research of tonalists that that they made up a lot of their scenes. They kind of just, again, we're just kind of after a feeling and a mood, and that's where my part of my affinity, not only their colors and their quiet nature and their you know, the peacefulness of the paintings, but also the fact that they were just making stuff up, having fun, really spoke to me and how I wanted to not always create. I mean, you just saw I did a bunch of Cannon Beach haystack pictures. I like doing that as well. But by doing this and just having fun and making it up, even when I go and paint that haystack painting, you know, I'm pushing the values, I'm pushing the design, I'm pushing the colors, and you know, trying to decide again what mood, what atmosphere do I want in those paintings. So it just frees me up to not be so copycatish. There's nothing wrong with copying and, you know, trying to replicate a photo when you're learning to paint. But I think at a certain point, that loses its luster. You know, when you're learning, you kind of use that as a tool to go, am I doing this right? Am I making the right colors? But eventually you're kind of like, you know what? I want more. I want it to mean something. I want it to have a poetry to it. I want it to have.
So is tonalism just landscapes, or can there be tonalist portraits and tonalist still lifes?
So you know that great big thick book I showed you today?
Yeah.
Tonalist, kind of the tonalist's main book. There's 460 images in that book. Only 30 of those are not landscapes.
Well, that's something.
Yeah, so there, yeah, you can totally, I mean, Whistler often put figures into his landscape, so you can definitely do that. But no, you could do anything you want. And again, I don't want us to get too hung up. There's no really great, perfect definition for tonalism. And if there is, it's, you know, made by a person who's just trying to describe their work and wants it to be called tonalism. So I don't get hung up too much. Like, even when I describe my work, I'm like, I'm tonalist with impressionistic brushwork, and I mostly care about light and atmosphere, and you know what I mean? It's, I don't know any artist that like their style fits exactly into just one genre. And I don't think it should. I think we should all be kind of the offspring of all of our artistic forefathers and foremothers. And
Uh-oh. It just froze.
it froze. Anybody else frozen for it?
It just froze for a second, but now it's back.
All right, I got some words on my screen. All right, looks like I'm back. A little bit shiny there still. Let's see if I move the camera, if that changes. Isn't that fun?
That is fun.
Not for you, but I'm having fun. I'm gonna go ahead and put a little bit of light into the bank of the beach there. Man, these brushes really do throw a lot of hairs.
Yeah.
Be careful about that. And here, look at this yellow. It's done a nice little slug slide down the thing. Somebody was asking about that earlier. So the paints definitely will move if you set up a vertical palette.
Someone told me if you squeeze a little bit of super glue right along the ferrule when you first get the brush and let it dry, then it won't lose its bristles anymore.
Huh.
Hmm.
Interesting. I would imagine that's probably partly true or true. I don't know what paint thinner does to super glue, but they may be impervious to each other. Let's test this. You can go a little bit lighter than that. There we go, little hint of a bank. I'm gonna bring in a little light and maybe I'll use some of that crazy Venetian red like I've been wanting to use all day. I'm gonna mix that in with some of those greens and I'm gonna bring that across the tops of the trees, but I'm gonna knock it down with a little bit of my Payne's gray so it's not so warm because I want it to be on this side, on the shadow side of the trees. Gonna lighten that a little more. Maybe add my gray. So you can see that I'm using kind of a consistent pile of color too, so that there is kind of a harmony too to these colors. Hopefully. That's one thing I do think about a lot when kind of considering a tonalist painting is there a harmony? Do things feel like they exist in the same world or same mood or same atmosphere? Do they get along well, or is one of them screaming like maybe the grasses are too bright or too colorful comparatively to the other things? And so just kind of asking, is everybody getting along? Are you guys playing together nicely? Anybody need a timeout? How can you calm them down, quiet them down if they need to? Or maybe it's the other ones need to be a little more energetic and a little more woke up and a little more exciting.
What I love about it is you don't have to worry about what color green is that tree.
No, yeah. No, yeah, exactly right. I mean, exactly.
Because of the reflection, it's really hard to see what color that is.
I don't know. It's really just gray.
It looks chalky from this angle.
Yeah, let's see if I change. Oh, I can move this around. That's my nice thing about this nice palette. There we go. Lower it down. Yeah, and I can still come back in with my background colors and carve out my shapes. I can grab smaller brushes if I want to go to little liner brushes or any of these others, and I can bring in different kinds of trunks and make them interesting, bring in some of this shape. This is a very strange mouth-like shape over here. I probably want to do something with that, probably break it up.
Okay, I hadn't even noticed that till you mentioned it.
Yeah, it's very Halloween-y. I just want to keep things organic generally. There's nothing wrong with painting an English garden, everything in a row, if that's what you want. But I find with myself that oftentimes I'm organizing nature in such a way that just doesn't feel as natural any longer. And so oftentimes it's kind of that back and forth where, I'm like, okay, how can I make this feel organic and natural again? And I never used any Q-tips either. So I could definitely come through and really make, thousands of small little beautiful shapes if I wanted. There's so much I can do. You can just leave it at this stage, let that dry. If you want, you can just keep painting into it and carving and experimenting and playing. I have weird edges, spots that I'm not happy with, so I would probably want to come before I left it alone to see how I like it, because sometimes you just kind of can't see it until you step away from it for a little while. So like the top of this tree is very distinct while everything else is nice and soft. So maybe I just come through and kind of soften that edge. Same over here, kind of just, where can I do little shapes and make things a little bit more interesting. Yeah, just kind of having that conversation with your painting as I kind of cruise my eye around it and just say, is that interesting? Could it be more interesting? Does it need to be there? A lot of times we just make things overly busy because we think that busy is better, but with tonalist paintings, a lot of times less is more. You heard me say that already. I also have a motto that if you've been in my classes, you've heard me say, when in doubt, take it out. If it's not helping, it's hurting. So that's something on my paintings. A lot of times I'm just kind of running through and like, are you helping this situation? Are you making this a more interesting painting? No, then I probably don't need you in there. Yeah, just being busy for busyness sake isn't interesting to me. There's other artists that can do that want to paint every figure in the city. But I'm not that guy.
Or me, I get caught up painting every leaf on the tree.
Yeah, well, this is going to help because when you're painting with a paper towel, it's pretty hard to put all the leaves in. But I mean, do you look at this and ever doubt that there's leaves on those trees or that there's, blades of grass in that grass?
No, I see all the leaves and all the grass right there. Yeah.
So.
And you didn't even have to paint any of them.
Coming back.
Actually, so are you gonna take a photo of this too?
Yeah, of course I will.
Yeah, great.
It's got to tack up a little bit, otherwise it's so hard to photograph it, as you know, shiny paintings. And I'll probably touch it, a little bit after class. I just like to take a little break and get, see what it actually looks like, because I'm a very optimistic painter. And basically anything I'm painting is the best painting I've ever painted. Some people always hate their paintings. I always love my paintings. And then I come back a couple minutes or day or hours or whatever later, and I can be a little more honest with what I'm looking at. Why is it not? Remove spotlight. Let's see. There we go. All right. So that is class. We've got 3 minutes left to tell me if you actually enjoyed that, or if you didn't, if you would, what you thought of first day of tonalism class. That was a long and short 3 hours. We did a lot. We covered a lot. I'm hoping I didn't inundate you with too much. I want to try to keep it kind of streamlined and simplistic. But at the same time, I love it so much, and I've just got so much to share that I could easily go off the rails and try to tell you everything all the time. And so let me know if I'm telling you too much and it's losing the plot. It's a lot easier to learn a couple things at a time, not everything all at once, as we all know. And we've got time. We've got 8 weeks. And
so
yeah.
you said you're going to be gone for a few days. Will you be reading the comments on the Facebook group, or will you not see them till you get back?
I will only make time to read the nice ones. I'm going to be at an art show. I need all the self-confidence I can get. So no, I will try. I'm out at Cannon Beach. I will be painting for 5 to 6 hours a day at the gallery, actually.
Mhm.
So if you're in Cannon Beach or want to come out to Cannon Beach, I will be demoing. Yeah, I've seen Michelle out there before, and
We'll be there on Sunday.
cool. Oh, good. Are you going to come
Michael,
to?
which gallery is it?
It is called Dragonfire Gallery.
Dragonfire, okay.
And I've been with them for 17 years, which is crazy. And they're awesome. They've been with me since I used to do children's book illustrations. Maybe that's where my little hanging on to the magic of everything kind of comes from, because I used to do dragons and bears and kids and all that kind of stuff. A lot of whimsical stuff. Anyways, they showed that, and it was them coming to my home to pick up paintings for another show, and they saw my personal collection of work, which I'd done while traveling and camping and stuff, and they were just landscapes. And I just kind of thought, oh, one day when I retire, I'll be a landscape painter. And they asked if they could show them, and the show did well enough that I started weaning myself off illustration work, and eventually that completely took over. In fact, I haven't painted a dragon or a mermaid in 10 years at least. Thank goodness. Not that I don't like it, but I sure like what I'm doing now. And so anyways, I give them all the credit for allowing me to make that transition, for noticing that transition. And it was such an instantaneous thing that I was like, I used to tell people I've retired. I'm doing what I was going to do when I retired. And somebody told me once that people can tell when you enjoy what you're doing. People can tell when you're having fun, and they want a part of that. And I do think that people can tell when my work is joyous and flies off. That's why I don't charge by the hour on my paintings, charge by the size, because a lot of the paintings that take the longest and are the hardest for me are the least amount of fun. And you all know that. A saying I have to myself is, I like painting, I don't like fixing. And that is, that's why these first steps and these first stages and just getting your design, getting your values right is so imperative early on. Because if you start telling yourself, I will fix it in the painting process, it takes 10 times longer. You saw me add a mountain and remove a mountain today in the first painting. It took me 3-4 seconds. It's so much easier when you see something wrong in your painting, fix it as soon as possible. It's always easier earlier.
I have a question.
Mhm.
In the second wipeout section, did that one not apply to the sky is the lightest with the water, and the land was going to be, the next lightest? Because it looked like it was almost uniformly dark.
Yeah, you're right. Very much. This one, if when I go back in, I will definitely be lightening up that ground and stuff.
Okay.
I just kind of wanted to hint at it, that you could see it. And what would be a lot of fun is to actually have the light coming from between those tree trunks, having some cast shadows a little bit, at least hinted at back there. I would also probably light the tops of some of those trees, having kind of an enveloping light, and I don't even know where my light source is in there. Let's go back real quick. Let's give this a little bit of a light source just for pretend. And this is always kind of fun. It's small, right? I apologize. I didn't make it a big scene. I didn't blow up mine, but I'm just going to go with a little bit of paint thinner on a paper towel, just kind of twist it up the end. And where shall we make
It looks like it's coming between those two trees on the left, right there, to me.
Yeah, would that be a good spot? So if this is half and that's half, that's a pretty good spot, actually. Let's go ahead and put it there. Let's see. Oh, it's already so. Might have to do it with paint.
Set up.
What size is that panel?
12 by 12. So it's already stained enough that I'm not able to remove it more. So I'm just going to simply, and this is just a show and tell. This is, I will not leave this sun where I'm putting it probably. But let's just add some white and pretend.
Whoa.
I see Laura's name only.
Laura's name.
Yeah, it's because I turned my video off.
But close your mic and then we won't.
My painting. I'm sorry, I unpinned it when I sat down. So just anyways, can you guys see the sun kind of light? So then I would know, you know, if it were there, and I would paint it better, of course, and fix it and add warmth to it, because right now it's a very cold sun. But then I could go, oh, you know, if that's where that is, then I could, you know, hint at light coming across between the trees and do some kind of fun things like that. Of course, it would be all better and more thought out and lots prettier when you guys do it. But anyways, I generally, one of my first questions to myself when I'm painting is, where is my light source? Very important. Where's my horizon line? Where's my light source? Are very often kind of the first questions in to myself when painting. And if we were all painting together in a classroom and I was walking around and giving you help and feedback, that would be a question you would hear me asking a lot, is where is your light source? And I want you to know, if it's super overcast day, it can be a lot harder to know. But you know, and it doesn't have to be just the sun, doesn't have to be in the picture like I just did. It could be up high, it could be behind these trees hiding, it could be, you know, on whatever side.
But you know, I would say that that's one of the characteristics of tonalism, is that you don't necessarily see the light source, but
Yeah,
you do see you do see the glow of the light.
Yeah. So when looking at them, kind of ask yourself, where is the light source in it? And generally, maybe, and that's why I paint so many backlit trees, is generally it'll be kind of backlit tonalism, but it doesn't always have to be. It can be top lit, it could be front lit. And we're going to experiment with some of that. Some of those references that I put in there did have front lit trees, and I still felt very tonalist. I know that one of the references that I showed of Dennis Sheehan's painting was definitely front lit comparatively to the others. So yeah, as you're looking at artwork of others, that's one of the best things you can do is, you know, look at it. Do I like it? No. Yes. But also, you know, asking just kind of a string of questions. What is the design? Do the lights and darks hold out together? You know, is there, where's the focal point? Does it have a focal point? How does it get me to the focal point? And we're constantly borrowing from the artists that came before us. I like to think of art as standing in a stream, you know, and upstream is all the artists that came before us. And then downstream are the artists that we're going to hopefully influence and lead. And we're just a part of it. It's not so important that we're create our own art form or, you know, do our own thing. And I don't think anybody really does anyways. It's just, we're a part of it. We're in the stream of art. We're learning from, borrowing from, stealing from all the artists upstream, and we're giving to all the artists downstream. So I don't know if that had anything to do with anything. Got to say stream a lot. Anyways, any other questions, you guys?
I have a question.
Please.
Okay. Since I'm not present, I don't really know how much paint, how thick your layers are.
Sure,
Like,
that is difficult. Yeah.
Yeah. So it appears that on this one, like on the other one, it appears that it's all pretty thick everywhere. And on this one, it appears much, much thinner. Is that right?
Yes. And I would
thickness
kind
of
of,
layering.
yeah, that becomes kind of a matter of style. And as we're looking again at all the tonalists and everything, some of them paint very thin. There's an artist named John McDonald who paints very thin and builds his paintings up very slowly. I tend towards that method more, but as I said earlier, I kind of am trying to become a little more impressionistic, a little more painterly in my paintings, but at the same time retaining my atmosphere and light and all that, which I found to be easier when I was painting thinner. But again, I like thick paint. I like the feeling of it. I like the appearance of it. I like a painting to look like a painting. So I am trying to paint thicker. That's a personal challenge to myself. I will say paint what's comfortable a little bit. You know, if you find that you are more comfortable with more paint, awesome. I do find that most of my students kind of wish they could paint looser a lot of the time and with more paint more of the time. I rarely have students come to me, I wish I could paint thinner and tighter. I'm not saying that there's, go
But
ahead.
historically, weren't the tonalist painters historically painting thinner?
A lot of them, yeah, a lot of them. And then they would kind of go crazy on certain areas. If I can find some really high quality photos, I will share them. There are some that are so impressionistic and so beautiful, and have a lot of texture and paint. But what they were doing is retaining that structure of tone, that value structure. So like within my darks, I could have all the colors, but they're all going to be nice and dark. And then within the lights, I could have all the colors, but they're going to hold together by their value. So they don't look as thick. I also like glazing. If you see that haystack rock behind me there, that yellow right up in that corner, you can't see my mouse, but right up on the edge of the canvas where it's the haystack rock is turning reddish. I actually went back in and painted white back into that area, let that dry. And in fact, that's strongly. That's also what's going to happen with that tonalist one. I went back in and lightened some of the sky. I'm letting that dry. It's not dry yet. But after it dried, I was able to go in and glaze the Indian yellow very thinly into that. And what's neat about areas of opaque thick paint versus areas of transparent thin paint is how the light travels through, around, and onto those surfaces. So an opaque thick painting, the light hits the surface of that paint and bounces off, right? Or absorbs whatever is going on. With the transparent paint, like, so I have painted white, let that dry, and then painted transparent color on top of that. What's happening is the light is traveling through that transparent layer, hitting that white layer, and then bouncing back out to us. So that's another way that I'm able to get the illusion and feeling of glow within my paintings, is by using a combination of opaque paint and transparent glazes. I think that'll work really well on the one we just did, or the one I'm working on currently. You know, if I can get some of those light areas, or maybe before it's I'm finished for the day, I go in and maybe add some white paint, and then after it's dry, go back in and glaze whatever colors. It could be a night scene. I could make that into a nocturne very easily and still have a big difference between the the darkness of the sky versus the super darkness of the trees. And throw a couple stars in there like you got behind you, Deb. And we could easily make that into a nocturne by glazing in the whole thing with blues and phthalo greens and purples or whatever. So as far as I have no expectations, especially on the first assignment, of how thin or thick you should paint. I do urge you to cover your surface where it needs to be covered. If you're painting too thinly into darks, they're just not going to appear dark because they'll appear very transparent. But anyways, yeah, good question. And we can get back to that.